Okay, so welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to this session. So I'm going to be talking about GED writing and in particular, the extended response on the reading and language arts as conversation. So most of you already know me. I'm the training coordinator, and I bring to this topic actually years of teaching writing, including teaching college freshmen first semester who are just a breath away from high school level writing. And so this is what we are going to cover in this session. I'm going to talk first about what is actually on the test. What do they have to do for this activity? And I'm going to describe a couple ways to demystify this activity for students. And then I'll walk through some tips to help you prepare your student for the exercise. And I'll finish up with some resources. If you do have questions, I will ask you to put them in the chat as you think of them. And then I'll leave some time, hopefully, at the end for discussion. And if I'm starting to run over and not leaving time for discussion, Lisa, start waving at me or something. Okay. But first, to start with, just with a show of hands, on a scale of, or this you can put in the chat, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being completely unfamiliar, 10 being highly familiar, how would you rate your familiarity with the GED extended response? Okay. And Regina, did you say that you were not having access to the chat?
Exactly. And I would say that I am somewhat familiar, more like number 3.
Okay, good. Okay. Um, and I'm not seeing the chat. So,
it's coming as a direct message to me.
okay.
Kathy responded and I responded to Kathy. Let's see.
I think the chat is set up that it's not, I forget. I don't think everyone's supposed to be able to see it or something. I forget.
No, I thought hosts could see it.
Okay.
Okay.
Kathy said 6.
I think this is Kathy. What happened was in my message box, it was on somebody else's name. So I had to go into the drop-down box and pick Roberta. So I just did that. So Roberta, I'm going to send you my response.
Let's make this easier. How many would say 5, 6? Raise your hand. Okay. How many would say 3, 3 or 4? Okay. And how many would say somewhere between 7 and 10? All right, Julia and Lynn, great. Okay. And okay. Yes, Lynn, I can see that. Great. Okay, so how many, again, just raise your hand if you are currently tutoring or have tutored a GED student. All right, we've got a couple experienced crew here. And of those students, how many have a student who attempted the essay? Okay, a couple. All right, good. Okay, so I think we'll have a good discussion at the end. So just to familiarize you with the entire GED exam, as you probably know, it has 4 parts: reading and language arts, social studies, science, and math. Reading and language arts is often referred to as RLA, okay? And so that has 3 parts, and the essay portion constitutes the second part of the exam. It is not required, okay? But this is how they set up. There's a 10-minute break between part 2 and 3, so the entire RLA exam takes 150 minutes, of which they get 45 minutes for the essay. Okay, so why do our students, do you think, have so much trouble writing an essay? I think part of it is, that when they hear the word essay, the way we approach it, they think they have to start from zero. And they have this blank page, right? There is just this fear of writing or anxiety about writing in a vacuum. And so how do we try to help them with that? Okay, where to start? We tell them to break it down. Okay, we break it down. We tell them writing is right? That first, when you decide what to write about, you brainstorm ideas and then you start, okay, just getting it down on paper without worrying if it's correct. Then you revise the content, and lastly, you edit. All this is fine for approaching essay writing. Okay, but it still leaves them with a question about kind of where to start, and particularly brainstorming ideas. You are still thinking that you're starting from scratch. Okay, so I want to lean a little bit into the name of this activity, which is called the RLA Extended Response. Okay, it is a response to a text. So this is what GED tells them they are doing: read, plan, and write. Okay, so we are starting with reading. Okay, and the prompt is the same for it's always the same. So students are presented with two texts to read that offer differing views on the same topic. And their task is to determine which writer presents the stronger case. And the response has to include evidence to support why they think one argument is stronger than the other. It is not necessarily the argument that they agree with. Okay, they are just determining which argument makes the stronger case. Okay, so these are more in-depth instructions that they will actually see on the test. Okay, and this is put, the things they actually have to do are put in bold so that they can move quickly through these instructions. But hopefully they should be familiar with them by the time they come to the test. But you will see it is a timed response. They have 45 minutes to read, plan, and write. And so generally, it's advised that they spend about 15 to 20 minutes on the reading and planning, and about 20 to 25 minutes on the writing, including leaving themselves 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes at the end to review and make any edits. And so this is how the extended response is scored. Okay, they can earn up to 2 points for each of these three parts. Okay, 0, 1, or 2 points for how well they develop an argument and support it with evidence from the text. 0, 1, or 2 points for whether their ideas are presented in an organized way, and 0, 1, or 2 points for whether they follow the conventions of English language. So they could maybe have a really disjointed argument, but still earn a point or two if they just have follow writing conventions. Okay, so it's 6 points total, but this is weighted to count for 20% of their score.
Roberta,
Yes.
question for you, because I want to make sure I understand this. My understanding is that they must write something or they fail this test.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's not true.
No?
No, they can still pass without completing the essay. It's
Okay.
20% of the score. They can pass with 80%.
Okay, thank you.
And so if you have a student who is really, really struggling with this, then, don't force it. But even if they only get 1 or 2 points, it could still make the difference between passing or not passing the test. Okay, so it's good to encourage them to try if they can. Okay, and it cannot hurt their score. Okay, if they write an essay and get 0 points on it, it's not going to hurt their score on the test. It can only help them. We have had a number of students who just missed passing by, 1 or 2 points, where this could make the difference. Okay. So I think by demystifying the activity a little bit, you can encourage them to at least give it a try. And by demystifying, I mean that there is a lot of mystifying around this activity. Okay, you will find all sorts of mnemonics, things like crap, crek, peel, rave, that are somehow supposed to help students. Okay, so you calling it a text-dependent exercise. This is just a fancy way of saying that it depends on their ability to read a text. Okay, that might be helpful for you, not very helpful for your student. Pre-writing, okay? Pre-writing does not tell them what they need to do, okay? What they need to do before they write is read, okay, and analyze, okay? So these are just some of the mnemonics that I've found out there. So correct, claim, reasons, evidence, analyze the crap, and then develop your own claims. So this mnemonic leads to another mnemonic. You have to know what crap is. Okay, so crap, currency, reliability, authority, purpose, peel. This one is actually trademarked by someone. Make your point, evidence, blah, 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 blah. Okay, all this. If these help your student, fine, okay, use them. But my own take is that they can actually be just one additional thing to try to remember, okay? And it can actually be more complicating than helpful. So this is what I would suggest in order to help demystify the activity, lower the anxiety level for your student. One is to point out that the extended response is primarily a reading activity, which they have been doing all along. It tests their ability to read and understand a text, and that the writing itself is in response to the reading. So they do not need to come up with ideas from scratch. This is different from how they might imagine writing an essay. So if you think of this as a reading activity, okay, it relies on all the reading and critical thinking skills that they have been practicing. Find the main idea. Look for supporting details and evidence. Summarize in their own words. And ask themselves, okay, is this convincing? So if you look at the activities that they're doing, starting from low levels of Journey to Success, the textbook that we use with adult basic ed learners, okay, this is what they're doing, okay, summarizing. They're learning to summarize. They're learning to reread and look for the main point, okay? They are asked to determine which is the best summary. This is one of the best things that you can do for teaching summarizing skills, is show them something that's maybe close, but not very complete, okay? So that they actually see which one is better. And it actually has them start using graphic organizers to practice planning out ideas, writing their summary, okay? This is, and then identifying the key points and details. This is the same type of work they've been doing all along. This is Journey to Success 5. Same thing, okay? Find the author's main claim. Find the reasons and evidence, okay? So letting your student know that this is just building on what they have already been doing. It is really building on their ability to read and understand a text. Okay, citing evidence. Again, something else that they're asked to do. Okay, this is Journey to Success 7. Okay, so this is not new to them. Okay, and in terms of responding, okay, I think a more accessible way of framing this activity instead of crack, crap, peel, is just tell them you are entering a conversation. Okay, nobody writes in a vacuum. Academic writing is always entered into in conversation with other speakers, other thoughts. Okay, so the questions they need to answer: what is this person saying? What does X say? And why should you agree with them? What does Y say? And why should you agree with her? Okay. Who makes the stronger case? Why do you think so? Okay. This is just a frame to make it a much more accessible type of activity. The advantage of thinking about this as a conversation ends up putting the focus on the text, that this is an argument made by a person, okay, not the topic. Okay, so if there is a common pitfall for students working on this activity, it's that, okay, they see 2 articles about daylight savings time, and they think their task is to start writing about daylight savings time. But it's not really. It's to write about what these people are saying about daylight savings time. Okay, so this puts the focus on the author and their argument. And it, in order to be successful at it, it requires that they understand the text, okay, before they start writing. And it helps avoid the pitfall of students just jumping in, talking about the topic, which then is evaluated as giving their own opinion, which again is not the task. So this is an example. You don't need to read it in detail. It's just an example of what often happens, okay? There was the prompt had 2 different views of daylight savings time, and here your student is presenting 2 different views, but again, they're just jumping in and writing about the topic, okay? They are not writing about summarizing what the author is saying, summarizing an argument. Okay, here's another one, same thing, they just jump into the topic. Also, this one is too short. Okay, so I'll talk later about the length, but they need to write a certain amount in order for an evaluation to be made. Okay, so here is another example. Okay, and you see the difference. Okay, this student is talking about the articles themselves as if they are written by someone. Okay, so between the first positions in this article, okay, the first writer makes some valid points. They bring up this, this, and this. Okay, the other one is much better supported. Okay, it's referring to the author. It's referring to the writer. It is entering the conversation. So I have some suggestions for how you can use this framework of a conversation to prepare your learner. Okay. For one, again, these are the more extended instructions, guidance on what they need to do. And it tells them clearly, okay, develop your own argument, but that you are making the argument about which case is better supported than the other. And they have to include evidence. Okay, it tells them to write 4 to 7 paragraphs of 3 to 7 sentences each. Okay, so it starts out with the reading. Okay, this again is from actual text. And most of the readings, I went through a number of them, and they seem to have around 350 words. So the first thing a student needs to do is be able to build their reading skill so that they can read this amount efficiently and identify main points. So you don't want to increase their anxiety, but you can do some timed readings with them, okay? Get them to practice reading material in a certain amount of time, okay? And get them in the habit of reading with a pencil in their hand. So to become more efficient, as they're going through the first time, try and identify, okay, this looks like the key point. Okay, this looks like a reason. Okay, here is some evidence. Just rather than reading the whole thing through and going back, okay, develop the skill of identifying those things as they go along. Okay, then you want to work on building their planning skills. Remember, they have to read, plan, and write. Okay, so graphic organizers can be very helpful with this. And they can lay out evidence on both sides and maybe put an S or a W next to it, or a smiley face or a sad face, whether they think it's a strong argument or a weak argument. And then go through and decide which argument is stronger and why. So when they go to the test, they'll actually be given, I think, several sheets to write on, where they can create their graphic. So this is from a pro literacy video. I'll tell you more about it later, where it shows a student actually going through and completing this type of graphic organizer. And if they have all this information, okay, then the next step of starting to put it into paragraph form becomes that much easier, because again, they've got it all laid out. Okay, so again, it's advised, these are the full guidelines from GED for responding to the prompt. Okay, 4 to 7 paragraphs, 300 to 500 words. The sweet spot seems to be like 400 to 500 words. Okay, so Lisa asked before about if they don't write anything. If they write under 300 words, they're most likely not going to get any score, because that's just not enough writing to evaluate. The trick is that when they take the test, there's no word count function on that computer screen. Okay, so they'll want to build up through practice, just recognizing that this number of paragraphs, this number of sentences will generally put them in the range. I did see one strategy in one of these videos, that if they run out of time to write a conclusion, just cut and paste their introduction, which should introduce which one they think is best supported, and just put that at the end. You can use that advice or discard it as you see fit. So this is the basic structure, okay, that they would need to follow, is an introductory paragraph, 2 or 3 sentences, that introduces the question, gives a brief summary of both arguments, to demonstrate that you understand the text, and then just say which one you think is better supported. And then, excuse me, in the main body, you have 2 to 3 paragraphs outlining the reasons you think that article makes a better case, okay? And why you think the other one is weaker. And then in the conclusion, you restate the claim. So, okay, where students often have difficulty is they may be able to understand the main point, they may be able to summarize, they may be able to identify which evidence is strongest, and where they struggle is to then put that into written form. So I don't know if you're familiar with this text. They say, I say. Gerald Graff and Kathy Birkenstein are 2 professors from the University of Chicago. And this book was first published in 2006. I was exposed to it a little over 10 years ago, teaching a writing class, and it has revolutionized the teaching of writing. If you put into a Google search, they say, I say, you will find so many college, high school, I even saw middle school programs come up that have created their own templates based on the work in this book, okay? So using templates helps students structure what they want to say. It generates language. It provides language that they need in order to organize their ideas, okay? So this is an example, okay, for an introduction. Okay, and these can vary. It doesn't have to, but you are just providing the structure. What the subtitle of this book is Academic Moves That Matter. And what it has done is it makes explicit the type of logical structures that skilled writers use without giving it thought. And the idea of the authors of this text was to democratize academic writing. It also is based on the idea that academic writing is always in conversation with other ideas. And so you are talking about someone's argument. Okay. And again, here are just some schematic, template ideas. And so some people think that this is too formulaic, that it is, it's doing the work for the students. But in order for students to use this, okay, they still have to understand the article. They still have to understand the evidence. This just provides them with structure, okay? And teachers who use it find that students become not just better writers, but better thinkers, because it helps organize their thoughts. Okay. For those of you who have worked with GED students and on the essay, raise your hand if you've used templates. Okay. So I am not making this up out of whole cloth. These have become a go-to method for preparing students for the extended response. So this is from a webinar put out by Pro Literacy. And these are some sample templates that they recommend for students. And again, the student still has to come up with the ideas. This is just helping them figure out how to present them. Okay, and here's the template for the body paragraphs, okay? And it shows them, how to introduce a citation, okay? How to provide an example, okay? How to present a counter argument, okay? How to identify one argument as weaker, okay? And then in conclusion, okay, how to wrap up. Here is another one, okay? This is COABE, which is our our national adult basic education organization. And this is an instructional coach and GED instructor from Indiana, okay? And also, just by studying these examples, students can see, how to structure their own argument. And you can work then on just specific, discrete skills with prompts. So how to summarize, how to introduce a summary, X argues, X demonstrates. Just learning this, including this vocabulary, could get them a 1 or a 2 on the test, even if their logic isn't all that great. How to introduce a quote. Okay? Transitions are very important. Okay, so just again, practicing these on their own, putting 2 paragraphs together and asking them, okay, is this an addition or is it contrast? Okay, so that's all working on writing. Then the last thing they need to do is be able to review their work and edit. Okay, and who knew, okay, that F. Scott Fitzgerald struggled with all these possible titles for The Great Gatsby before finally coming up with this one. So I think it's helpful for students to know that when they see writing on a page, it hasn't just sprung fully formed from someone's head, that, all writers are constantly revising, reviewing, editing. Now, this is a timed response. So sometimes it's good to only have 4 to 5 minutes so that you don't go down a rabbit hole of all the possible things. Okay, but they are, the reviewers know that, or the test administrators know that this is a timed response. They are not expecting perfection on the level that you would for a published essay, something like that. But they do want some basic attention to mechanics. So these are the things that they care about most. Okay, varied sentence structure. So if all the sentences start out, subject, verb, object, working with your students on some joining conjunctions, some contrasting transitions, that can be helpful. Using transitions, this is important, just to mark out the progression of their argument. Avoiding run-on sentences, sentence fragments, wordiness, awkwardness. So these are all things that ideally you would be working on with your student in all those journey to success writing activities that they've been working on up until now. Subject verb agreement, capitalization, pronoun usage, punctuation. So some of this, you would be working on before, and some of these are things that they would quickly look through while they're taking the test to revise if necessary. They might be happy to know that as long as the word is understandable, it doesn't have to be spelled correctly, okay? Except in the case of homonyms frequently confused words like your and your, there and there, to. They want to keep an eye out for those, okay, because those are things that will be signaled. But students can get very hung up on spelling. It's more important that they look for these other things. You know, did they mark the end stop? Did they use commas? Did they capitalize proper names, the beginning of sentences, etc.? So one thing you want to do is build student skills in reviewing and correcting their own writing. And so this, again, would be something that you hopefully have been doing all along, where you look at the things that they might most need to work on. If your student tends towards run-on sentences, or they tend to sentence fragments, okay, then you would put that on an editing checklist. Okay, you customize this for the things your student most needs to look for, and make them responsible for checking their own writing. So another skill they need to take this test is digital skill. The text is online, and so they will need to be comfortable reading a text online. There is a highlighter tool. So if they want to highlight the main point, use a different color for evidence or whatever. Again, this is something you would want to practice with them so that they can do it quickly and comfortably by the time they come to the test. So there is a tutorial where they can go and practice this online. It's a computer demonstrator. Okay. On the other hand, the tutorial itself is a little tricky to navigate. It took me a couple times through to actually find this. So you will find the practice with the highlighters and the other tools in the very last section, okay, called test tracking tools. So they will have to go through all of these sections first, clicking next, next, next at the bottom of the page. It might give an error response saying you have not completed whatever. You don't actually have to do the task, but you have to scroll down and read the entire instructions before it will let you click next, okay? But when you finally get to that last section, it lets you practice with the highlighter. There's also cut, copy, and paste, although I would recommend using that sparingly. It can, if you start cutting and pasting before you've actually written the whole thing, it can really eat up time, okay? Another tool on the test is it does have a timer there. If you have a student that is made more anxious by seeing that clock counting down, you can hide the timer. Okay, so again, this tutorial will show you how to do that. Okay, so some resources that you might find helpful. First of all, if your student is preparing the GED, we have these manuals from New Readers Press that you will receive as an instructor. And the writing level 3 goes through all of what we've just covered: working, practicing, summarizing, finding evidence, all those things with sample prompts. And so it goes into a lot of detail and practice. Okay, the level 4 is mostly just writing prompts that they can then use to practice. And then New Readers Press has a whole series of videos that would be very helpful for students. And they're all very short, only about 3 to 5 minutes long. This is, a student who has passed the GED and who is basically leading you through all the steps for completing the extended response. I highly recommend all of these. And these are videos that might be helpful to you. So these are the ones that I just cited before with those sample templates. They go a little bit beyond the GED. For instance, the COABE webinar also talks about a little bit about the HiSET test. Do I really have to write an essay? Also talks about just making writing relevant for your student. But they also give valuable advice. So I will have a sheet with all these links that I can send out to accompany once we upload the video to our YouTube channel. Okay, we'll also make a sheet available with the websites. Another resource that I found interesting, this is a teacher who's been working with the They Say, I Say template, and just has some interesting reflections on how with practice, students then start becoming more flexible with it. So it is not a straitjacket. And he also has a blog called Articles of the Week, where every week he posts some article that presents two different points of view for students to practice. And GED testing service themselves provide a great deal of useful resources, including an educator handbook that takes you through in detail how the test is scored, guidelines for writing. You can find practice questions, and they actually have an example of a perfect scored response. And one thing about studying those other responses is have the student go through and identify what are the transitions, what is the evidence. Use those as examples and models for them to then draw on for their own writing. Okay, so I think we have about 7 minutes left, maybe. And I will stop here, and I am happy to entertain any questions and/or comments.
So Roberta,
okay, yeah, I see this question about if the essay is computer-based, how should the student notate? That is mostly in their practice leading up to the computer test. But that is why too, I mean, I myself, I'm a paper person. I would find it a shift to all of a sudden have to be doing that online. And that's why I think practicing with the tutorial, that digital skills are as much a part of succeeding on the test as is the writing. The HiSET is still paper-based, but that essay is required. It's not optional. So that's a little bit different process.
the other issue for our students is the HiSET is not available in the city of Pittsburgh. They have to travel to get the HiSET.
Good to know. Where do they go?
New Kensington, I heard, was the closest.
Okay. Most students do opt for the GED, particularly since the pandemic when everything had to pivot online. You know, when they first made it digitally based only, that was a considerable barrier for students who had been preparing up to that point. But I think we have all stepped up our game in trying to prepare students with digital skills.
Roberta, the only place to practice those digital skills for the GED specifically is on their tutorial, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's like a one-shot tutorial. You can't practice very much.
Well, you can do it over and over
Multiple
again.
times, but
Yeah. It's mostly just getting comfortable with, clicking on the highlighter, if you even want to use it, if that's really slowing them down, using that whiteboard sheet that they're given and just taking notes as they read, as they go along, is another strategy.
But they have to do all their note taking on the computer, I believe.
I think they're given those sheets. No?
I don't think so. Lynn, do you know?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do you know, have you proctored a GED test
No.
recently? Yeah, I'm not certain, Roberta.
What's the
I don't think,
question?
are they allowed
Okay.
to have paper and pencil?
It's not paper and pencil.
No.
And it's
They
on the
have to
computer.
use they get a blank sheet on the computer, I believe, to make notes.
So it's still
Okay.
on the computer. Yeah.
According to the pro literacy, they were given maybe that's only at certain testing centers.
I don't know.
That it's like a whiteboard kind of sheet that they were given.
But I think it's on the computer, the whiteboard on the computer.
I don't know if it's on the computer. I think if it's at home, if you test remotely, that's that. But I think in person, it might be an actual whiteboard. I don't know. We can find that out. I don't want to say it for sure, so I'm not 100% certain.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going by the information given by New Readers Press. So
Roberta, I have a comment, and I'm not teaching GED. I'm not a tutor. I just wanted to sit in on this class. But I have to say that the they say, I say template, it must help people who have anxiety so much to fall back on that framework. It must just be such a benefit to help, because everybody struggles with, anxiety for a test, but to know that you have the safety of that framework, it must be such a benefit.
it really is. I will say that the book itself, They Say, I Say, gets a level of complexity that might go beyond what our students need, but it does have at the back a whole index of templates for things like, introducing a citation, summarizing an argument. One thing I would like to do actually is develop our own kind of cheat sheet template, like the ones that are in the videos that are specifically adapted to the GED. I did just kind of a sketch of one in this presentation, but I think it's something that we could work up and provide, because it's true, it's a huge support. And it's not, it's not giving them the answer. It is, giving them the tools they need to express their thoughts.
I got the answer to the question.
Oh, great.
So this is in Katie's sheet, advantages and disadvantages of testing online versus testing in person. The testing online, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. You must use the online whiteboard for any notes you want to make. That's if you test, at home. Testing in person, you can use scratch paper and the handheld calculator. Is that what we were trying to find the answer to?
Yes, thank you. And so that can help. That's useful information for the student to know if they have trouble taking notes on the computer and would do better with writing it out, then they might want to take it in person.
Yeah, just for anybody else, there's a lot more advantages of taking it in person. So we try to push students to do that, to do the in-person testing. Roberta,
Yeah, online. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna go ahead.
You go. I've been talking.
I was gonna say, is it worth mentioning on the GED Ready test, the extended response is not graded. So I just wanted to mention that for the GED Ready test for anyone that might not know.
Yeah, that can be useful. there's a lot of information in the GED handbook about how they're scored, where you as a tutor could, could probably give a good analysis of how it might do. Okay, are they closing us out? I think they are. Okay, thank you, everyone. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or comments or concerns.
Lisa, Anita, I don't know who is recording right now, but whoever it is, can you stop the recording?
Can try.